political element to this, because I think that's probably the most important aspect of this, the fact that this movement seems to have a pretty strong grip on Canadian politics, at least from my perspective. Who is behind the funding of the Khalistan movement? Who funds, for example, the World Sikh Organization and these other groups that seem to be, involved in our local politics?
Well, I think they fund themselves. I think it's very easy. The Indians will often tell you, again, they sort of cut to the chase without a whole lot of evidence. They say,
Right.
well, Pakistan pays for it all, don't you know? Maybe they do. I don't have hard evidence. It's very hard for me to look into their internal finances. They certainly have supported the movement every which way: training, medical care, weapons, refuge, safe haven. Where did Parmar go when the police closed in after the Air India bombing? He ran to Pakistan. He spent the last 3 years of his life mainly in Pakistan. So it's always been a haven. But that doesn't necessarily mean that Pakistan finances groups like Sikhs for Justice. So I simply don't have evidence to make that statement. But I don't think it's particularly important because they've got plenty of money themselves. They don't have any problem. I mean, you got a keyboard, got a computer, you can be big on the internet. I mean, it's not as though they're spending a lot of money. They're not fielding a military.
Right.
They are internet warriors. They're keyboard warriors. And they do a great job of that. And it doesn't need a lot of financing. You don't need the Pakistani ISI shoveling money into an enterprise that costs very little.
Do you think that this Khalistani issue in Canadian politics, maybe it's the glorification of terrorists like we've seen with Parmar, is this going to be a permanent fixture of Canadian politics going forward?
Well, I very much hope not, because, as I say, it only takes one brave politician. Well, it wouldn't necessarily have to be very brave, in truth. But, I mean, you mentioned the recent Khalsa Day celebration in Toronto. Lots of Khalistan flags, but also posters of Prime Minister Modi of India and Foreign Minister Jaishankar and so on, and the Defense Minister, calling them killers, offering rewards if you go get them, and saying let's besiege Indian embassies and high commissions, offering cash money in rewards for revealing diplomats' home addresses. In other words, threatening their safety, obviously, intentionally undermining their safety, increasing their security bills, that kind of thing. That's what goes along with those nice yellow flags and the cries of Khalistan Zindabad. There's more to it. That I would like to think that eventually a leading politician. There were three at least. Well, at the federal level, the mayor was also there. But at the Toronto Council Day, for example, Pierre Poilievre was there. Didn't say a word against it. So was Jagmeet Singh. It wasn't. The Indians say, "Well, Trudeau's supporting these people. You see how he's smiling while they're chanting Khalistan Zindabad." Well, that's not the problem. Keep your eye on the ball, guys. They're threatening the lives of diplomats and glorifying mass murderers. Worry about that for a change. And I think that if a politician did stand up and make that speech and say, "Look, I've done this myself. I'm here to tell you that I'm not coming next year. I'm not going to come and have this creeping extremism where it gets worse and worse every year, where, next you'll be calling Parmar a saint." Well, some people already do.
Right.
I'm not going to be coming to your Vaisakhi parade if that's how you intend to behave. And watch that politician win the votes of the rest of the Indian diaspora. There are more of them than there are Khalistanis, I guarantee you.
And the last question I have for you, Terry, is this. From our perspective, we've seen a major surge in our population, especially from India, and particularly in particular, Punjab. Does it not benefit India to get rid of people who might be, anti-Indian government and get rid of people who might be more prone to the Khalistani cause and send them to Canada than to have them in our and have them in their country? Do you think there's an element of them wanting to actually incentivize people like that out of India and into Canada?
I actually don't believe that, for the simple reason that the Indian government does not like it much at all.
Right.
When somebody that they would like to put in prison escapes their jurisdiction, goes to Canada, and continues to foment hell for his former country. And they're very bitter about that. And they say that Canada shouldn't be letting these people in. The Foreign Minister Jaishankar said as much in so many words just a couple of weeks ago. You know, it goes along with more of the exaggeration, I should say, by the Indian side of just how terrible some of these people are. Some of them are terrible, but I mean, we know of 4 who are now charged with murder that came apparently as students and didn't seem to do a whole lot of studying, did they?
Right.
In fact, I don't think they ever went to school at all. So both, you know, you can blame both sides. The Indians for letting him go, the Canadians for taking him in. Fine, blame them all. But I don't think that's the real issue between the two countries. The Indians are still stuck on their traditional point of view. They don't share our definition of freedom of speech, and we don't share their definition of terrorism. For example, Sikhs for Justice is banned in India as a terrorist organization, and its leader Gurpatwant Singh Panun, the target of the principal target before Nijjar of the assassination plot, he's also branded as a terrorist, as was Nijjar. Well, if they could come up with good hard evidence, they might find they'd have better luck getting Western democracies to give these people up. But that's the real issue between the decision, apparently, by some people in the Indian government, with or without official sanction. That's an argument still to be had.
Right.
The decision to decide to go after them in Canada and in the United States and elsewhere, by the way, there's about maybe a dozen or so that have died under mysterious circumstances in Pakistan. But the decision to go after these people and wipe them out and these kind of semi-official hit squads, that's, you know, we still don't know exactly how much we can pin on the top levels of the Indian government. But I can tell you that the Canadian government and to a similar extent, the United States government is quite convinced that it went very high up indeed, the approval for these killings. That's the real issue right now, isn't punks who aren't showing up at school with student visas. It's murder squads going around in the Western democracies, wiping out, well, who? People that they've decided they don't like because they think they're a terrorist and they couldn't produce enough evidence.
It seems like a real unnecessary disaster for our country to be in, but again, one that needs to be reported and discussed. And so, Mr. Milewski, I really appreciate you taking the time to speak with us on this issue.
My pleasure.